All right. So let's start with disc, and I guess SaucyJay can go first on this because that's your main.
Yeah, I think for disc, when it comes to keys, I think it's in a good place. I think it's probably the most min maxy out of all the healers as far as like understanding the dungeon and the timings because there's no reactionary there's nothing reactionary to it. I mean, you have to know what's going on. So that can be a little bit of a buzzkill, especially as you're starting to learn it. Um, for people like us who play all the healers, that means we've done tons and tons and tons of keys, so we already kind of know the dungeon. But if you're just looking to get into a healer and something like that, it's to me it's the most min maxy, maybe except for maybe Prez Evoker can be a bit. You really have to kind of know the class to get around some of the stuff. But I love it. It's my main right now, and I'm having a blast. In raid, I just go easy route, Zug Zug, and go holy. So in raid, I kind of rank it lower. So on all in all, it's extremely fun. It performs well. I'm in maxi, so I'd probably give it a low A.
Okay.
That'd probably be my
How
rating.
about you, LB?
So this is probably the one that's gonna struggle the most in terms of criteria. Because if
Yeah.
you go off of vibes, apart from J, it's easy F tier. But if you go off of like strength and top end keys that like none of us can get invited to, obviously it's an S because there you're in comms. You can say, hey, I'm stunning, follow up my stun with your stun, then kick this and kick that. You don't have to worry about that. But as a pug, or as a healer, actually, I used to say we heal the bars in front of us. I used to say that. But that's not true. There's so much more information on the screen than just your health bars, and part of that is casts. If you see two web bolts going towards Tony,
Mhm.
you start your cast into Tony so that it hits right after those bolts are between them. There's so much more information, and um, being able to stop those casts from going off is big, and only having Psychic Scream is really tough. So look, don't get me wrong. Disc is S tier, but in my tier list, where I live in Pug World, it's so strong that it's up toward A, but it's not quite in S. So it's like it's top of A tier, but it just can't get into S tier in Pugs, in my opinion. Although its throughput's insane.
Okay. I'll be completely different from what you just said, but the vibes for me are S tier. Like I'm having a blast this season playing it. I'm not saying it's easy, but as I said, it's kind of also like a little bit of a vacation for me because I don't care about interrupts. I don't care about the spells. I just don't have those things. You guys
It
deal
is
with it,
nice.
right? So
Yeah,
from this
true.
perspective, vibes and like having fun for me this season, it's like the best that this has ever been. However, if you ask me what healer do I play, I will never recommend this, man. Like especially in
Hmm.
pucks, right? For pucks, I would say this is F tier because it's so hard, and it's not just hard healing, but now you're lacking all the utility that you need to handle some of the problems that the dungeons present. So, for that purpose, I would agree. We can probably agree to put it into the A tier. And it's a very, I guess, class that's very specific to how you take it, how you like the gameplay, and how much are you willing to expose yourself into playing disc and keys because it's definitely hard.
Yeah,
Um,
and I will say, like, this one, it just has the most variance. In the best hands, it's the
yeah,
best healer right now. In
absolutely.
the worst hands, it's probably the worst healer, or second worst, or
Mhm.
third worst, but it's
Mhm.
down there. So I think, like, although you're seeing it in A, no, it's kind of in S, but it's also kind of in B. It depends on who's
I
playing
would
it, you
I
know?
would even go and say go further and say it's kind of an S if you started playing it and you enjoy it. But if you're starting to
Mhm.
play healer, don't pick disc. Go
Yeah,
try
for sure.
something else, learn how to heal on something else because if you start on disc, it's gonna be F for you. It's gonna be below
Yep.
F for you initially. It's so different than everything else. So just keep that in mind. Alrighty.
I'll be right back. You guys continue. I'll be right
All
back.
right. I guess you don't want to rate H Pow anyway,
Yeah,
but
he doesn't want to get flamed by the HPAL community. He's
yeah,
gonna put him in F, by the way, guys. Flame him in
yeah.
the comments.
Let's rate this one without him. So HPOW, how has that been for you?
So the way that I play it, I would say it's like low B because, like I said, I'm playing the weaker Mythic Plus version, which is the Herald of the Sun. But the The Lightsmith Avenging Crusader build is so good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so good and it scales very well versus any dungeon mechanic. Having a 1 minute cooldown as a Mistweaver monk who has that, I know just how powerful that cycle can be, and you have enough cooldowns to fill that gap. So I would say it's a lot stronger than I thought it would be, but I don't know if I can't put it in the same tier as Disc. So if I were making this tier list, I would try to spread out the whole thing and use all 5 tiers, and I think I would put it in B
Okay.
for myself personally.
Fair enough. I would personally, I also want to put it into S because, and the main reason is I'm so happy that it's back. Because,
Oh yeah.
like, people know me as Rescue Shaman, but the other healer that I've always played was actually Holy Paladin. And I didn't play it at all in Season 4 of Dragonflight because it was so bad. So I was so happy to see it back. I'm also very delighted to know that both hero talent specs are available. So
hmm
Herald of the Sun not only plays well, but like the fantasy behind it with those beams and the Avatar of the Sun, all of this hits very hard for me. It's very nice. And then the Lightsmith brings all of those tools that I'm playing with right now throughout the season. But also Lightsmith, as we said, it includes a lot of micromanaging of the additional skills that you're getting, so it's not easy to play. So I can see how that could be a little bit discouraging, and people kind of try to avoid it. So I'm willing to not put it into S for that specific reason.
Now,
Uh,
I
s-
will say, like your main reason for putting it into S is that it's back,
yeah,
and I agree. Like like I said, if this were a vibes tier list, I think there's no denying it's an S
yeah,
because like not only is it back and it's like very good and it's kind of restored a little bit of what it can do, it's also gained its identity back where like they're the shock healer. And
exactly.
I really appreciate that. I really like that they've kind of given that back to them, and it's good. So I would put it in S in a vibes tier list, but for the way that I like to do, unless we're actually fully going off vibes, which I'm down to do,
Yeah.
I would probably not put it in S, especially not above
Yeah,
Disc
yeah,
right
I totally agree, especially when we consider that Avenging Crusader is not a playstyle that everybody likes,
now.
agrees, and vibes with specifically, and it's definitely harder to play. So for that reason alone, I'm willing to put it downwards as well. So question is, do we go low A or high B?
I don't think we should clutter the A too much because I'm gonna stand my ground, spoiler alert,
Okay.
for a specific healer. I would say B, but like just know that that's because Disc is the real S. Really, it's supposed to be like S plus, then
Okay.
Disc and S, and then they're basically an A. Is how I'm viewing this.
All right. We could have put S plus because I have something for S plus as well. But let's put it like that. We can just put it into B, and then everybody can just keep in mind what we're saying, I guess. All right. So let's go to Holy Priest next. Do you want to start on this one?
I will. I don't have as much experience as with the current iteration of Holy Priest, but I did play it a lot in the past. Like I know what's going on. I will just say that they kind of suffer from the priest syndrome, which is where in Mythic Plus especially, you're going to have a situation where someone levels a priest, and the strength of priest is, hey, if one spec is bad, swap to the other one. But that's also the downside from the other half of the
Yeah.
coin. If disc is great, no one's going to be playing holy, and you kind of just suffer from that. So I think the worst pre-spec will always look worse than it is, and that's kind of what happens to holy. It's not as bad as people say, but it does have all the same weaknesses and lacks some of the strength that disc has. So
Mhm.
personally,
Which one?
I cannot put it in F tier. I don't want to get roasted in the comments. I don't think it's F tier, but what are you doing to me? I'll put it in C.
Okay.
I don't think anyone, surprisingly, I don't think there's an F tier, this tier,
I
personally,
I
though.
have one, but we'll get there. I'll add up just because basically everything you said is exactly how I feel. I already said that to me, Holy Priest kind of feels like a budget Rest to Shaman version, and then
hmm
you have a very good point. Disc is now superior, so everybody's playing this, which makes Holy Priest look even worse. And I'm just I haven't played it much. Let's say that. So I don't know if I should be rating this at all. But personally, for me, I think F is going to be too harsh as well. But I also don't see how we can put it higher, especially in B if we have the Holy Paladin there. So for me, it's also going to be a C tier. Do you have a different take, SaucyJay?
I think it's better than C, but I again I think you run into what do the other healers currently bring. And when you compare it to other healers, I think that's why it feels like a C.
Yeah.
But I think from a performance sense, it'll get the job done, and it doesn't require a whole lot of like I need to understand everything that's happening. Because I mean, unless like Guardian Spirit's like the only thing that really you need to put it on before they
Mhm.
die. Outside of that, I mean, everything else is reactive based, and there's some maintenance that you have in there, but um, it's a fun class to play, and I think it's a very easy class to learn how to play with. I think it's pug friendly as like lower keys, right?
Mhm.
If you're trying to learn how to heal, I think
Yeah.
it has enough utility. It does have PI still. So there's some cool things that it brings. It's not as strong as the other healers when you look at the full toolkit. Um, but it can
Still a
still get the job
priest.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's also mention it's actually blasting in raid. It's not bad at all there.
It's
But
Especially
blasting raid.
heroic raid. It,
yeah,
it makes
Yeah.
heroic raid look easy, like straight
Oh
up.
exactly.
man.
Yeah, but
So
I
easy
guess our
too.
main perspective is a little bit leaning towards Mythic Plus a little bit more. So do we put it into C or we want to try to push it higher?
I think C is okay
C is
with
fine.
the caveat that, when you're comparing it to everything else, this is a tier list, so it's meant to be compared with others. So I
Yeah.
think in that respect, it belongs in C.
Okay. All right. So let's jump to the Mistweaver next. No way we don't start with LB Ninja here.
I think I think we all know where it goes, and I
Yeah.
don't think I have to say much. It's
Definitely
the
goes to F.
easiest.
Yeah.
Should we add an S plus plus at
The
the
easiest
top?
S. Okay.
No. So one thing that I think a lot of people are sleeping on is a lot of people know Disc does good damage right now, but not a lot of people know that Mistweaver is doing insane damage right now. Like you
Yep.
said, Crackling Jade Lightning is
Mhm.
like the top of the charts, and it does so much, and that does so much healing. So not only did buffing Master of Harmony make Master of Harmony better, but adding in Jade Empowerment has allowed us to take Master of Harmony, because before, even though Master of Harmony did good damage, we couldn't really take it because we needed the safety of Conduit. But having your Crackling Jade Lightning at 2 charges be an AoE a cooldown has filled that gap. So you were doing so much damage. Um, the problem is, like you said, healer damage doesn't matter as much as it has in the past, but the way that you do damage as Mistweaver is very important, and having being able to pick a priority target really helps. And the raid healing is pretty solid right now. It's not as good as it has been in the past, but it's still very it's I mean, look, they should be at the top of HPS charts because they literally bring nothing else to raid right now.
Yeah.
But it's like passable in mythic raiding, I would say. But you know what? Screw that. Buff their raid healing. Put them in S tier. Easy.
All right.
No, if I'm being real, it's I would put it top of A. I think
Okay. Top
on
of A.
average it's better than disc, but like the best disc player can get further with disc. But yeah, that's where I would put it.
Okay. How about you, SaucyJay?
I need to play it more. Honestly, I mean, watch some people play it, and have been in some when I'm playing lock or tanking, and you know, it functions. It's good, but I want to be able to play it, and I need to play it really to be able to really assess where it belongs. I think the days of spin to win that was like big in Dragonflight, and that went away, and so I'm kind of excited to play it. I just haven't got there yet. So I'm gonna rely on you guys. I know you guys have played a good amount of it, so I'll let you guys put it where it needs to be.
I'm a little bit biased because I'm a fan of the play style. It's still the spin to win is still there, in big pools. You
Oh, it
just,
is. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's
I don't
yeah,
think it is right. Well, okay. It depends on which hero talent tree you're running. Like you do not press spinning crane kick with Master of Harmony. I'm pretty sure ever.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
it's
let me say this.
very
So my ranking is from the perspective that I haven't played Master of Harmony, and obviously I'm missing on this. Like I need to try
Mhm.
it. But in general, as I said, I'm a big fan of the gameplay style, and I actually have it as S in my personal tier list.
I
So
mean, I think I agree with you.
yeah,
I'm kidding.
we have to put it up there. Yeah, so it's a fun gameplay style. It's a little bit different than everything else because obviously you're melee and you're doing damage to heal most of the time. But it has been very enjoyable in Dragonflight, and I think they only build up more. They added more stuff, which was
Mhm.
very very nicely done for the War Within. So I actually have absolutely no problem putting into S tier as
I
well.
mean, there's no arguments for me.
Yeah,
Memes aside, like I really do think the Crackling Jade Lightning, the Jade Empowerment buff or addition has like it really has sent this into the next level. Plus, Rushing Wind Kick.
yeah,
It you can't really get away with it in Mythic Plus because it does share a node with Jade Fire Teachings,
yeah.
which is what makes your Crackling Jade Lightning heal more. But in raid, it really it doesn't remove, but it really reduces how much you're punished for playing well. Because Mistweaver's a really weird spec. Imagine this, Jay. Imagine you're playing Discipline Priest and you get reduced healing for each atonement you have out.
Hmm.
That's kind of what happens with Mistweaver. They punish you for having more renewing mists out, but
Hmm.
rushing wind kick kind of helps with that. So it's like it's just in such a good spot right now. And for the average player, you can crank with this damage and healing alike. So I would argue S for
Okay,
sure.
so I guess that's an easy yes. Take it as you will. The next on the list is the Preservation Evoker. And I'll start with this one because for me personally, if it was my personal tier list, and I know that I'm not going to get flaming comments and stuff like that, that is actually S plus for me this tier. Like I had so much fun playing it, learning the complexities in Mythic Plus, playing Chrono Warden. Obviously, I don't play Flame Shaper that much, and as we said, it's hard, right? Because you have a lot of interaction with your different skills. You have to know how they work with each other, stuff like that. And then you have the range limitations, and then people need to know where you stand, right? So all of this makes it even harder to play. And for that reason alone, my personal experience is S plus, but I don't think I would even put it in S from that regard, because that's another healer that I would not recommend people to play if they're starting because it's very tough in general. But if it comes to fun and learning and playing it, it's definitely top notch for me. From that perspective, I guess we can put it into like A for me, low A, but I might be willing to go even lower if your takes are much different than mine.
Mine's gonna be low, so I don't know where you're at.
I would it's just so hard to gauge Prez because one, the player base is so low. But it like we talked about it earlier, there's so much variance in the spec just like with disc. Like and it's not even up to you. Disc it's up to you. If you're playing bad, you'll just do horribly. But Evoker, if you have a group that's not like coordinating with you, it can be very punishing. But you can't make a tier list based on the worst case scenario every time. I think Presovoker has surprised me. Their raid healing is still very good. I would also kind of go like kind of up there with Disc. Once again, knowing that Disc is S tier in the right hands, I think it Prez can be up there like between maybe up to like Holy Paladin level. I would
Mhm.
put it. I wouldn't put it down with Holy Priest, but probably with Holy Paladin.
Okay, so it's like in between those two for you.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
So my take is the biggest hurdle is going to be, I'm not going to focus on the gameplay. Look, the throughput. So Blizzard's done a good job. Kind of going back to what I said at the beginning. All these healers can do the work. The problem is the people, and you're always going to run into what LB said earlier. Hey, you're Prez, but can you play Og? Can you play Og? Right? And so there's just this nasty scenario where if like you're not Og, you're kind of, what are you doing in here? We don't like dragons, right? Unless you're an Og. Um,
Goosenecks.
Yeah, exactly. So I, from that perspective, is it a fun class to play? I haven't played much this season. I just leveled it, like I said, and got a couple little pieces, right, like during pre-patch, but or early release to whatever. Um, it's very fun to play when I played it. I just think, man, getting into keys, if you're gonna be playing it, it's gonna be rough. I think from the bottom to the top. Um, it's not the easiest class to play. It's fun, but you run into a lot of limitations, and there's a lot of nuances in that class. When you can just go AUG and just
Yeah.
hit a couple buttons and you're good. So for me, personally, I like more of a challenge, so it would go higher up. But in the general sense, on a tier list, comparing this to others, it's all the way. It's for me, it's with Holy Priest, because you have to look at kind of not even this group of healers here, but also the sentiment of the community in keys. I'm just talking keys mainly here, and augmentation, just the dominant force in keys in general, and the want and desire to have that. And one of my good friends, is Italian guy Adriano, even he will be like, "Oh, it's AUG. Okay, let's bring it." Because I mean, DPS like to see big numbers, right?
Yeah.
They want to see those big numbers, and so you're always going to run into that. So for me, it's a bit on the lower side, just in general, kind of the bigger picture. Uh, Personal playability, it's always high because it's difficult. I like difficult.
Okay. You want to add something, Albie?
I mean, I know, like, I know AUG existing really does just like cut them down. But like, if you were to make this tier list based on you're queuing up for a group and 5 people or 7 people, I'm sorry, 7 people with the same IO, same item level queue up of each spec,
Yep.
and your group does not have an AUG in it, I think you would take the Prez over the Holy Priest. And I think you would argue, like, if your group doesn't have a lust, you would take it over the paladin. If
True.
you know, so I think it not only brings that, but it can also remove like some pretty important debuffs like bleeds. Like
Yeah.
the bleeds aren't as terrifying this tier, but like there are some bleeds that are just nice to know you can get rid of. And I mean, also like Holy Priest, they do have GS, but like you don't have a way to like shove your tank into a big pool and time a key in a pinch. Like you can time dilation your tank as an evoker and like let them go crazy for that final pool if you need to. Like
Yep.
just Holy just doesn't have that. And I think that the lack of tools is why I would kind of like argue their throughput is up there with the other healers,
Yeah.
but they have more tools. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess we
Good
can
point.
agree that this is kind of like Disc. It's a lot of fun. You can get a lot of enjoyment from playing it, but then it's hard. And then if you're just starting and you're learning, it's probably not the best option to go to. So what do we say? I guess you guys want to lead it down to B. Maybe we put it in front of Holy Paladin
I would be more with Jay in the fact that it's probably behind Holy.
behind Holy. Okay.
But know this, Wolfie. Okay, this to me, the B tier is my A tier. So
Okay.
you're A tier in my heart. Okay, the Mistweaver's in S plus plus land. Everything else is like one tier pushed up. So
All right.
you're A tier in my
As I
heart.
said, Press for me is definitely S tier this season, but this is like personal, right? And
Yeah.
again, if you ask me, are you recommending this healer? I would probably say no. I like it,
Mhm.
I
But it's a
enjoy it,
good
but
time.
yeah, it's a very good time to play it.
Yeah.
All right, Restoration Druid. After everything I've said earlier, this is like the easiest F tier for me because I didn't enjoy it at all. It's hard to play like everything else, but then you're healing for less. You have to press more buttons. You have to press them harder. All of those things, and just the gameplay style for me is just not clicking. It's not there. So for me, that's the easiest F. But let's see how high you guys can push it with your arguments.
I think uh, earlier this season, I definitely would have agreed with you. I would have been like, okay, this is down there with Holy and F. But Holy has been surprising me with the numbers it can put up. But I'm sorry, Holy Priest. But Resto Druid actually really shocked me. Like I thought they were in a boat where you just don't have enough tools to deal with things, but I was surprised at how well their kit can handle different situations. And they do suffer in the wrong hands because they have Disc's problem where you have to ramp
Mhm.
pre-damage a lot.
Yep.
Um, but I think they're so much better. I think every healer is so much better than you think right now. I think right now we're all kind of wearing these goggles that are just Xalatath's bargain, that are just ruining the tier force. But I think Resto Druid is better than we think. But I think they just do everything that Disc does, but worse. Other than a few things, like they have some things that they obviously do better. But I think it just like I would never bring a Druid to my key if there's a disc that's also queued up. And for that reason, I'm out. No, but for that reason, I would put them down there, like probably below Evoker, maybe in front of Evoker, but only because of Mark of the Wild, because they do fill B-Res and Mark of the Wild.
Yeah.
It's just like Evoker is great and fun, but I would personally put them between Paladin and Evoker, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so middle B tier for you. How about Jay?
Yeah, I think I love Resto Druid, love it. It was originally I made a tier list going into the War Within on like which characters I was gonna play first, and I had Resto Druid at the top. My poor hands, man. I can't. The APMs
Just
just
don't cat
it's
weave, I'm telling you.
no, I wasn't
Just
even cat weaving. It's just like like in raid and in keys, it's like you have to keep people blanketed.
mhm.
Like, because once the damage comes, you need to be able to press, your regrowth, and it needs to hit, right? And it needs to actually have an impact. Because if you don't have hots on them, doing regrowth spam does nothing, right?
And by regrowth, you mean flourish probably, but
No, I mean regrowth, right? Like
Regrowth scales pretty heavily off of how
oh,
many
okay,
HOTS you
with the
have now.
mastery. Okay, yeah,
It's
yeah, all right.
different, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it hits hard when you have hots out, but if you don't, it's kind of weak.
yeah.
And that's why I started playing Wildstalker, because the extra hot, even though it doesn't heal for a lot, when you start to add your efflorescence and all these other hot, it cranks, man. But there's no rest. There's absolutely, you're never resting as a resto druid. And then when the build that I was running, I'm only at 2200, and I stopped playing. I pushed that up like the first or second week. Um, the build I was running, you go but then you can Wrath and Star Surge to get mana back. So you're
Yeah.
never resting. You're never resting. And yeah, I guess I could have went Cat Weave, but did same thing. You're still pushing buttons. I like Resto Druid. It pumps in raid. It pumps in keys if you know how to play it, but you have to know how to play it. You have to know the dungeons. Um, I don't think it's very noob friendly. I think like if you're a new healer, there's a lot to it. Again, I think Holy Pally and probably Holy Priest would be the easiest ones as a new healer. Um, I could see it in the Bs, somewhere in the Bs as a Resto Druid. Um,
All right.
for me,
I guess I'll comply with you guys here. Obviously, you know where I want to put it, but
I think you should give it a second shot. I think you should give it a second
Yeah,
shot.
try it
Yeah.
again and rely on your regrowths. You'll have a lot more fun.
yeah, I mean, I'm done with the other healers. So after Break the Meta is done this week, I will have to do something. And, pushing like 13s and 14s takes a lot of time in queues. So maybe I just hop on my Druid and then play there, So it's going to be much better experience. All right, so I guess mid B is fine for Druid. And then we have the rest of Shaman left on here. Obviously, I'm biased, but that's like the easiest S for me. The Puck King for sure, and the iteration of Resto Shaman this tier has been amazing. You can pick both hero talents. It blasts in raid. The healing stream totem meta is also something that I'm enjoying, although I used to be a very prominent Cloudburst totem
Same.
player, right? So everything just clicks and it vibes with this class. So it's easy as for me, but that's where I usually put it. So let's see what you guys have to say.
I'll concur with that. I mean, it's so fun. It's so easy. It's not difficult. I mean, it's really. I mean, I'm talking totemic. I did a little of the Farsi or whatever, but I didn't like keeping maintaining like the ghosts and stuff. I didn't really
Casting
enjoy
your
that.
healing rain.
Yeah. So then
Oh,
I
yeah.
switched over, and it was like instant healing rain with these little motes that did extra for like it was super passive, and it just worked, and like just the chain heals just going crazy. I mean, it's just so fun. You have kick, you have stops, stun, I mean, roots, you have all these cool things. So fun. I mean, even if you're new to healing, Resto Shaman is amazing. You don't need 400 binds. You could really get away with just a few, and it's really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, no objections here. Because, like you said, for like a new player, look, I don't think any healer is easy. I'll make videos every now and then where I'm like, oh, this is the easiest healer. But being the easiest healer is still harder than being the hardest DPS. We can say that, right? No one's going to cancel us for that. But I do think they are easy. And I think in my challenge, I highlighted it. So my Resto Druid push, by the way, I push 3 days a week. So it's not like, and it's only for like 4 hours a day. So like I'm not pushing every night. Basically, it's very controlled. My druid took over a month, and I was like, okay, cool. My shaman took like 2.5 days. Like it was disgusting how
It's so
quick I
crazy.
pushed this thing. Like, well,
Yeah.
from a certain threshold to 2,500, but it is a lot easier and it's very forgiving in the sense that like holy priest you mentioned like holy priest and shaman are kind of related, like they kind of do similar whack-a-mole healing, but holy priest you have your fort buff, but fort buff doesn't even pale in comparison to what shaman gives, which
Yeah.
is not only a mastery buff, but they also give what do you know what it's called, Wolfie, where it's like you just get bonus health, like everyone's at
Yeah,
like
the ancestral
110% health.
vigor and then downpour, so you can get
Yeah.
20% health onto people. Yeah.
How is this okay? How is it okay? I mean, it's so dumb. Like you think, picture this: you're in Arakara and you kill the first big spider, and you move to that second one that does the call, the Brood Lord or whatever it's called.
Mhm.
That ticks. It does like 70% of your health across like
Mhm.
like it does like all of your health and then some over a few ticks. If you're playing your shaman, sometimes you just put one chain heal between the ticks and everyone's fine. Whereas on your paladin, everyone's taking 150% of their health. Like you have to pop like wings plus time your divine toll plus get the holy shock in your beacon of virtue. Like it's
Yeah.
it's a lot. Whereas like shaman just can easy mode a lot of things like that. Plus poison cleansing. Like look, Mistweaver enjoyed its time in S tier, but we can, take down the curtain. You can move Mistweaver down to top of A, and we can put Shaman in its rightful place. I'll admit it, there was bias earlier, but I definitely think they're kind of alone up there in
I
S
was gonna
tier.
ask you, do we put it in front or behind
It
Mistweaver? I
goes at
think
the
we can agree on that.
top for
Yeah, it
sure.
definitely.
I
I
wouldn't
think it.
put Mistweaver down though.
I know I can read a comment already that says, "Wow, of course LBN would put like
Yeah,
a
these
Mistweaver in
biased
top."
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dislike.
Well, take it as you will, guys. This is kind of like the average of our opinions. So I think that's a fair tier list. But let's see what you guys think down in the comments below.